holding my newborn baby girl in a cold hospital room. I was staring at a medical bill with sheer panic when the doorway opened. The wealthy matriarch of my family stepped inside, her eyes scanning my faded clothes and exhausted face before she asked a terrifying question. She wanted to know if the $300,000 she sent every month was not enough to keep us afloat. My name is Nora, and at that moment, my mind went completely blank. My daughter Hazel was sleeping peacefully against my chest, completely unaware of the storm that had just entered the room. I looked down at my washed-out leggings and the cheap bag sitting on the floor, wondering what money my grandmother Abigail was talking about. We were drowning in debt, yet she claimed to be sending a fortune. To understand how I ended up here, you have to know about my marriage to Julian. He was a smooth-talking finance advisor who always wore perfect suits and knew exactly what to say to make people feel safe. My grandmother Abigail approved of him because he seemed steady and intelligent. She was the founder of a massive logistics empire and valued stability above all else, so her blessing felt like a solid guarantee. Right after our wedding, Julian insisted on creating a single joint account to manage everything efficiently. He told me it would cover the mortgage, bills, and future savings without causing me any unnecessary stress. He took full control of the digital access, saying his high-level banking tools were far superior. I trusted him completely and let him handle the finances while I focused on building our home. Slowly, things began to change in ways that made me feel incredibly small. Whenever my debit card was declined at the grocery store, Julian would blame it on temporary banking glitches. He constantly reminded me that cash flow was tight, and that we needed to live as simply as possible. I started cutting back on everything, buying generic brands and wearing old clothing just to save pennies. By my third trimester, the financial pressure felt completely overwhelming. I secretly took a late-night job counting inventory at a local pharmacy, standing on my swollen feet for hours under harsh lights. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law Victoria would visit and make passive-aggressive comments before praising my simple lifestyle. She claimed she admired my frugality, yet she always wore expensive new designer outfits during her visits. When labor started early, I checked into the hospital and spent 20 exhausting hours bringing Hazel into the world. Even in that vulnerable state, I felt guilty for wanting the comfortable postpartum upgrades because Julian said we could not afford luxuries. That was when my grandmother Abigail walked in, saw my state of distress, and revealed the massive monthly allowances that I had never even heard of. Within an hour, Julian and Victoria arrived at the hospital carrying flowers and acting completely normal. My grandmother did not waste any time and demanded to know what happened to the money meant for our household. Julian immediately started stuttering, trying to talk about complicated investments and financial timing. I looked at him and realized that my entire reality had been a carefully constructed lie. Victoria tried to step in and dismiss me, claiming that my postpartum hormones were making me emotional. My grandmother silenced her instantly and announced that a prominent lawyer named Sylvia was already on her way. We packed our things, and I left the hospital with Abigail that very evening, completely turning my back on the deceptive husband who had systematically exploited my trust for years. The next morning, Sylvia arrived at the house of my grandmother with thick folders containing bank records. The data revealed a horrifying truth that made my stomach turn. Every single month, within days of receiving the $300,000, Julian routed the funds directly into his private brokerage account. From there, the money flowed into an independent shell company that he completely controlled. The betrayal did not stop with my husband. Sylvia pointed out that Victoria was an authorized user on a luxury credit card funded directly by that stolen money. She had been spending thousands on high-end spas, expensive jewelry, and lavish vacations while I struggled to buy basic baby clothes. They had deliberately trapped me in financial desperation while funding their own extravagant lifestyles. Then Sylvia played a recorded conversation retrieved from a smart speaker back up inside the kitchen of Victoria. My husband could be heard saying that I trusted the process as long as he stayed calm. Victoria responded that they needed to keep me constantly tired, so I would never ask questions. Hearing them calculate my exhaustion, like a business asset, completely froze my remaining affection for them. Sylvia immediately filed a massive lawsuit for civil fraud and financial abuse. Julian sent desperate text messages accusing me of overreacting and ruining the future of Hazel, but I ignored them entirely. We sent the factual financial documents to the investment groups that were currently conducting background checks on his business. Within days, his major multi-million-dollar capital deal was frozen indefinitely. To save his collapsing reputation, Julian attended a high-profile industry dinner and lied to colleagues, claiming I was having a severe postpartum breakdown. This backfired completely because close associates of my grandmother heard his words and reported back to us. Sylvia added defamation to the lawsuit before noon the next day, distributing the updated filings to his entire professional network. His career collapsed as clients fled from the potential legal risk. Victoria attempted to visit our house to beg for mercy, mentioning family harmony and the well-being of the child. My grandmother blocked her at the door, telling her that if she truly cared about the baby, she would not have left me without grocery money. Victoria left in deep humiliation, realizing their manipulation was over. By the time Hazel was 6 months old, Julian stopped fighting the charges and begged for a settlement to minimize the public damage. He left a pathetic voicemail claiming he only wanted to provide for us, but I saved it simply as evidence for Hazel when she grows older. I moved into a peaceful little house nearby, secured a job at a nonprofit, and finally regained my financial independence. One morning, my grandmother Abigail sat with me while watching Hazel play on the floor. She apologized deeply for not inspecting the account sooner, admitting she mistakenly thought she was granting me freedom when she was actually giving a predator unlimited access. I reassured her that neither of us could have foreseen their calculated malice, and we sat together in a beautiful moment of shared relief and quiet understanding. The shame I once felt has entirely vanished, replaced by the profound realization that I was intentionally manipulated by experts. My grandmother did not just offer me vengeance in that hospital room, she offered me a timely interruption that saved my life. Now, looking at my daughter, I remember the exact moment the massive deception ended, and I feel lighter than I ever thought possible.